Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. In the first story, our OP came to repair an old lady's computer, and I think you can guess that it would not be without complications. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Required certain incompatible software to be installed, did not want to pay for the hours to make it work. I had inherited the privilege of repairing computers for a group of elderly ladies in town. A friend of mine helped some of them. His number was passed around. He helped lots of them, but was paid too. I have some all-right understanding of computers, the ability to just Google stuff, and was a broke university student, so when he left town, I told him to call me instead, with my consent, of course. So I get a call and drive across town to this lady who seems to have saved up a few problems. First, I had to figure out why some program would not read all of her picture files. I switched view options to show file extensions, which just means that pic1 is now displayed as pic1.bmp, etc. I downloaded something to fix it, codexes, and we're done. I get a call an hour later. The woman told me I broke her PC, since when she tries to rename pictures, she now gets a pop-up that her files will get corrupted, etc., and I have to come again ASAP. Telling her to just change the folder options is no option for her. I must come. So I do. Click one button and drive home again. Kinda my fault here, I must admit. She tells me to come again tomorrow as she bought a laptop I should configure for her. Next day, the laptop has no Win installed, but two Win XP keys, one with the CD, one on a sticker on the bottom of the device. It was sold as working and having Win installed, but that was wrong. Now my job is to install WinXP, but only with Service Pack 1, as she was told SP2 and 3 are bad and slow down the machine. Does not believe me, it's BS. I further should install some Office program, don't remember which one, but not OpenOffice. She wanted something pirated. And the usual antivirus, VLC, Flash player, etc. So I take the thing and drive home. She's very adamant on what to install, takes no suggestions, and gives me the list. The keys did not work. I call her, she says to try the other one. I already did. She tells me to make it work somehow, but insists I use the CD for the install because she paid for it. So in order to make it less illegal, I try the CD and look for a keygen online, which was quite the pain. Keygen pages are, as you can imagine, pretty often scams and viruses. Looking for her version didn't make it easier. I even had a working Win XP Pro keygen around, but she wanted her version. So I finally find what I look for and install. In the meantime, I pirate her Office thing, but when I try to install it, I get errors. I find another download site, same error. So I start the Google hunt, and after a long time, find out the Office program needs SP3 to work, which I'm not allowed to install. A very long Google hunt later, I finally figure out how to change some files to make it work, and it actually works. The whole thing took me all night, 12 hours. All right, all set. I bring her laptop. She's happy with everything. Stops when I try to tell her what I actually did and asks how much I think I should be paid. So on the one hand, I had to spend 3 hours on her other little tech problems, 12 hours on the laptop, and drove 3 times across town. On the other hand, I don't want to sound too greedy on my first contract, so I say 50 euros. She looks at me in disbelief, complains a bit. Installing an OS only takes 30 minutes. She's seen it before, etc., but pays. She also calls all the other ladies to tell them I don't know what I'm doing and am just greedy. And that was that. And our second story. Another mailbox story. So, mailbox story time. This happened back in 1982 for the record. My folks moved to a very rural area on a gravel road. No one had previously lived here, so it was a battle just getting mail delivery in the first place. My folks went several rounds with the local postmaster. He was somewhat enamored with his own power and very much a rules-to-the-letter kind of guy. Every I must be dotted, every T crossed, and if there's so much as a semicolon out of place, you'll have to start all over again. He seemed to have made it his personal mission to make getting mail delivery to a new address as difficult as humanly possible. Ultimately, my folks managed to fill out the paperwork to his satisfaction, and he begrudgingly allowed us to put up a box and receive mail delivery at our new home. Dad was extremely careful in the placement of our box and making absolutely certain it was the exact height, precise placement from the road, etc., to avoid annoying our local postmaster any more than we already had. There are, or at least there were, very specific rules about rural mailboxes. Dad followed every single one. That first mailbox was perfect. The man who drove the road grader was as annoyed as the local postmaster, as he now had a new driveway to accommodate. We suspect that's why he had it out for our mailbox. After the road grader had demolished 3 of our mailboxes, Dad got PO'd. Previously, he'd used the most basic design, just a post in the ground with a box on top. Now he was motivated. Dad got a hold of a 9-foot-long section of metal pipe. It's 4 inches in diameter, outer measurement, and has 3/4-inch thick walls. I have no idea what this was originally intended for, but I know how Dad used it. He dug a hole 5.5 feet deep, he welded an upside-down tripod shape, think open umbrella, to the bottom of the pole, and dropped it into the 6-foot-wide hole. Each welded-on leg was about 3 feet of some kind of rebar, and there were 5 such spokes. He then dropped some huge rocks on top of the tripod shape to hold it in place. The empty spaces around the huge rocks were filled in with gravel, and he dumped sand to fill in the air gaps. Then he filled the rest of the hold in with dirt and mounted the mailbox on top of the post. 3 days after Dad installed the new mailbox, we heard the road grader coming down the road. Our house is a 1/4 mile from the road, but we heard the loud clang from inside. We also heard the cursing and swearing from inside. No one went down to look until they heard the road grader drive away. When they did, the box itself was slightly dented on one side, but it was still firmly upright and functional. 3 weeks later, we received a bill from the township for a bent road grader blade. It was accompanied by a letter informing us that we had caused damage to city property because our mailbox was installed incorrectly. It would need to be moved, and we were liable for a bill of a couple $1,000s worth of repairs. Here's where it becomes pro-revenge instead of petty. Recall the fact that the local postmaster was annoyed with us over our battle to get mail delivery? Mom had made a point of each time we reinstalled the mailbox, taking photographs down to the post office and having the local postmaster sign off approval of height, placement, etc. She'd done the same with Dad's superpost and had documented, signed approval of the box dated the day before the road grader had bent his blade trying to demolish the box. She submitted copies of the invoice for the grader blade and the letter stating that the damage was our fault because our mailbox was incorrectly placed to the post office. She also submitted copies of the official post office approval of the box to the township. The jerk of a postmaster was also quite prideful and became furious that his authority was being called into question by some podunk township. As far as he was concerned, the township wasn't questioning my parents, they were stating that his judgment was wrong. I don't know what went down between the postmaster and the township, but we received a second letter from the post office reiterating their approval of our mailbox. We also got a formal apology from the township and noticed that the road grader's contract had been terminated because he lied about damage to city property. It was worded with a tone that said, "Please don't sue us because a contracted employee damaged your property." For the record, that post Dad installed nearly 40 years ago is still standing. We've replaced the box on top many times. That post, however, is now wrecked 2 cars and a truck in addition to that long-ago road grader. That feeling you get when your 2 enemies fight each other over your issue and solve it for you. And our last story. Small Norwegian gets even with IKEA. This little story of democratic revenge against an international retail chain took place in Norway recently. Some years ago, a certain Swedish furniture retailer was looking into establishing a couple of new warehouses in Norway. Now remember, the entire population of Norway is equivalent to a medium-sized international big city. So this is not something IKEA does often. All in all, I think there are about 5 IKEAs in the entire country, 2 of them in Oslo. Anyways, the Swedish number crunchers put some demographic, geographic, and economic key numbers into their Excel model and came up with a recommendation for a couple of alternative spots to locate some new warehouses. And since they are very much aware that many towns and municipalities would gladly sacrifice virgins and instate a mandatory morning prayer to Ingvar Kamprad in all public schools to secure the benevolence of the yellow and blue furniture church, they said so publicly. Since an IKEA warehouse means lots of local jobs, tax income, and a general boost to the local economy, it had the desired effect. Municipalities mentioned as possible future IKEA locations started to dedicate campaigns to make sure they would be the chosen spot. In a small rural municipality a bit south of Oslo, the local government did their job well. They changed the official regulations on a huge swath of land previously strictly regulated for agriculture to accommodate IKEA's needs. IKEA had bought it and wanted to use it for their warehouse. Yay! Rejoice! Couple years go by, not much happens, and then IKEA makes a new public announcement. They've reanalyzed their business forecasts and have decided not to build a new warehouse this close to Oslo. Economy is not as booming, tougher times ahead, etc., etc., but at least they'll capitalize on the property they've bought. Now that it's regulated for general business purpose, they can sell what is suddenly a very attractive piece of property and net a very nice profit. Some background here. It's generally very hard to change the official regulation for agricultural land in Norway. Although we're sparsely populated, we don't have an abundance of good farmland, so fields are protected by law. You even have to have a license to own farms over a certain size, and you're obliged to live there and use the fields for agricultural production. So getting a huge field regulated as general housing or business lots means you've struck gold. If the field is located in an area within a general demand for buildable land, the value can increase many tenfold overnight. So IKEA was expecting to sell the business properties for about 200 million Norwegian krone. That's roughly the equivalent of 30 million US dollars for a field they bought for an estimated $100,000. Until the local municipal council, in the span of little less than a week, decided unanimously that it would be vitally important to the preservation of Norway's agricultural capacity to regulate said field back to agricultural status. Yup, it'd be a shame to let all that fertile soil go to waste, you know. And no economic loss due to change of regulatory status is generally not compensated in Norway. We can take a lesson from you guys over here in the States. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.